why you feel sick after eating sugar. Hello and welcome to the channel. Today's topic is an important one because it involves food. We all have to eat, so this is applicable to everyone. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Most people expect sugar to make them feel good, or at least to make them feel something positive. After all, sugar has been part of human celebration for thousands of years. We put it on cakes, we hide it inside pastries, we freeze it into ice cream, and we swirl it into our coffee as if life depends on it. But for many people, sugar doesn't produce joy at all. Instead, it produces discomfort, nausea, bloating, lightheadedness, fatigue, or digestive rebellion. Sometimes immediately, sometimes 30 minutes later, and sometimes with enough delay that the person has time to blame someone else. What makes this reaction interesting is that many of the people who feel sick after sugar don't realize it's the sugar. They might decide it was the dairy, or the gluten, or the fact that the donut was eaten in the parking lot of a supermarket, which may or may not have spiritual significance, but often it is the sugar. Why would something that humans have evolved to actively seek out make modern humans feel unwell? It helps to start with a clarification. Sugar is not a single substance, it is a category. And within that category, different sugars take very different routes through the body. There is glucose, which your body views as energy in its most convenient form. There is fructose, which is found in fruit but also in many syrups. There is sucrose, which is what most people call table sugar, and which is a 50-50 combination of glucose and fructose linked together. There is lactose, the milk sugar that requires a special enzyme to digest. And then there are the sugar alcohols such as sorbitol, mannitol, xylitol, and erythritol, many of which show up in sugar-free products and many of which are responsible for unplanned intestinal drama across the industrialized world. Each of these sugars gets absorbed differently, metabolized differently, and tolerated differently. So when someone says, "I feel sick when I eat sugar," there is an immediate follow-up question: which sugar? Let's start with the most famous part of the story: blood sugar spikes and crashes. This is the version that nutrition companies and wellness bloggers love because it sounds dramatic and yet is technically accurate. When you ingest rapidly absorbed glucose, your blood sugar rises quickly. Your pancreas releases insulin to bring things back to a more normal level. In some people, insulin works enthusiastically, possibly too enthusiastically. It pulls glucose out of the bloodstream quickly and sends it into cells for storage or energy production. If that pull happens quickly enough, it can drive blood sugar lower than where it started. This is called a reactive hypoglycemic response. Reactive hypoglycemia produces a constellation of symptoms that overlap suspiciously with what a Victorian novelist would call a general malaise. Nausea, dizziness, shakiness, sweating, palpitations, irritability, and the sudden urge to lie down in strange places are all common. The person may feel as if they are crashing, which physiologically speaking is correct. This kind of reaction is more likely when sugar is consumed without any protein, fat, or fiber, because those things slow down gastric emptying and absorption. It is also more likely in people who routinely skip meals because their insulin dynamics are less buffered. And it happens in some people with completely normal metabolic function. They just react strongly to glucose spikes. The solution here is not always to avoid sugar entirely. Sometimes it is enough to avoid eating sugar on an empty stomach. That alone can turn a post-cookie existential crisis into a tolerable Tuesday. But reactive hypoglycemia is only one part of the picture. Another reason sugar makes people feel sick involves fructose, which is the sugar you find in fruits. Fructose follows a different absorption path. It requires specific transport proteins in the small intestine. If the amount of fructose exceeds the carrying capacity of those transporters, the extra fructose keeps moving into the lower intestine. This is where the microbiome gets involved. Gut bacteria adore fermentable sugars, and fructose that arrives undigested is basically a party invitation. Gas production begins. Osmotic pressure increases. The bowel becomes louder than the person would prefer. The clinical name for this is fructose malabsorption, and it is extremely common. The symptoms include bloating, cramping, nausea, and sometimes diarrhea. Many people first notice it when they drink fruit juice, soda sweetened with high fructose corn syrup, or honey. A person might conclude that oranges are evil. But the problem is not the orange. The problem is the delivery method. Eating an orange delivers fructose slowly and with fiber. Drinking a glass of orange juice delivers the same fructose all at once and without any structural buffering. The absorptive transporters become overwhelmed and a gastrointestinal carnival begins. Fructose has another interesting trait. It is mostly metabolized in the liver, not in other tissues. This means fructose takes a metabolic shortcut that bypasses some of the more regulated steps of glucose metabolism. Under certain conditions, that can create a backlog of metabolites, promote fatty liver deposition, or influence uric acid levels. These effects don't necessarily make a person nauseous in the moment, but they do contribute to the complex relationship between fructose and human physiology. Then there is lactose, which enters this story via milkshakes, ice cream cones, sweetened yogurt, and certain baked goods. Lactose requires the enzyme lactase for digestion. Humans are born with high levels of lactase because infants rely on milk for survival. But as mammals age, lactase production often declines. In many human populations, that decline is dramatic. In others, due to genetic adaptation, lactase persists into adulthood. This variation explains why one person can drink a milkshake happily, while another person drinks a milkshake and immediately regrets their life choices. Without lactase, lactose is not broken down into its component sugars. It passes through the small intestine undigested and arrives in the colon, where bacteria metabolize it, producing gas and other irritating byproducts. The result can be bloating, abdominal pain, nausea, or diarrhea. Importantly, this reaction is not an allergy. It is not immune-mediated. It is an enzyme deficiency, and it can vary depending on dose. A small amount of lactose may be tolerated. A large amount may not. And yes, sometimes the only difference between I love ice cream and I'm never eating ice cream again is about 30 extra grams of sugar. Sugar also interacts with the nervous system in more subtle ways. When sugar hits the taste receptors, the brain responds by releasing dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with reward, learning, and motivation. Dopamine release is one reason humans become emotionally attached to cookies. It is also one reason that sugar can feel mood altering. But dopamine is not the only system involved. In some people, especially those with anxiety or heightened interoceptive awareness, sugar consumption can activate the sympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for the fight or flight response. This can produce nausea, tremor, palpitations, or a vague feeling that something is not quite right. This phenomenon is not psychological in the dismissive sense. It is physiological and neurological. The brain monitors internal bodily changes very closely. If a sudden spike in glucose feels similar to the physiology of panic, increased heart rate, increased arousal, The brain may simply categorize it as panic. The lived experience of the person is that sugar makes them feel unwell or unsettled. Now we arrive at the microbiome, which is where things become complex enough that entire conferences are devoted to the subject. The gut microbiome consists of trillions of microorganisms that coexist with us. They help digest food, synthesize vitamins, regulate inflammation, and communicate with the nervous system. They are also opinionated, and their opinions are shaped by what they are fed. When a sudden influx of sugar reaches the gut, it can shift fermentation dynamics rapidly. Certain bacterial populations flourish under these conditions, increasing gas production, altering intestinal motility, and releasing metabolic byproducts that can activate nausea pathways. This effect is particularly noticeable with sugar alcohols, such as sorbitol and mannitol, which are poorly absorbed and highly fermentable. These sugar alcohols appear in sugar-free candies, chocolates, gums, and desserts. Consumers often assume that sugar-free means benign. The microbiome does not share that assumption. It interprets sugar alcohols as an all-you-can-eat buffet, and the result can be cramping, bloating, diarrhea, or nausea. Food scientists even have a term for the dose threshold at which these symptoms begin. It is charmingly called the laxation threshold. Once you know that such a threshold exists, you begin reading ingredient labels differently. Beyond these more mechanical explanations, sugar intolerance can also be a sign of underlying conditions. One example is dumping syndrome, which occurs when food moves too quickly from the stomach into the small intestine. This is common after certain gastric or esophageal surgeries. Sugary foods, especially liquid ones, can trigger a rapid shift of fluid into the intestine, leading to nausea, flushing, dizziness, and sometimes diarrhea. Another example is gastroparesis, a disorder in which the stomach empties slowly. When sugar lingers in the stomach, it can produce nausea or vomiting simply by virtue of occupying space for too long. People with diabetes or prediabetes can also experience uncomfortable reactions to sugar due to impaired insulin response or delayed glucose clearance. And at the rare end of the spectrum, there are inherited metabolic disorders such as hereditary fructose intolerance, in which fructose cannot be properly metabolized and becomes toxic to the liver. These are uncommon, but they illustrate how deeply sugar metabolism is wired into human biochemistry. A significant number of people who feel unwell after eating sugar also have irritable bowel syndrome or IBS. Many sugars fall into the category known as FODMAPs, meaning they are fermentable, poorly absorbed, and osmotically active. For someone with IBS, consuming these sugars can provoke abdominal symptoms within minutes. The connection between sugar and IBS is so strong that fructose and lactose restriction are part of several evidence-based IBS dietary frameworks. Given everything we just discussed, it becomes clear that sugar intolerance is not one problem. It is many possible problems wearing the same costume. Sugar can cause symptoms because the blood sugar rose too quickly, or because fructose wasn't absorbed, or because lactose wasn't digested, or because the microbiome revolted, or because the nervous system overreacted, or because the person has an underlying motility disorder. The body is not doing this for dramatic effect. It is attempting to maintain homeostasis under conditions it does not always love. So, what can someone do if sugar consistently makes them feel sick? The first step is observation. Which foods caused the reaction? How much sugar was consumed? Was it eaten alone or with protein and fat? Was it in solid form or liquid? Was it fructose heavy or glucose heavy? These details matter. A person who feels sick from honey and fruit juice may have fructose malabsorption. A person who feels sick from ice cream may have lactose intolerance. A person who feels sick from pastries on an empty stomach may have reactive hypoglycemia. A person who feels sick from sugar-free candies may have exceeded the laxation threshold, which is a sentence very few people enjoy hearing. There are also practical strategies. Pairing sugar with protein or fat slows absorption and helps prevent reactive drops in glucose. Choosing whole fruit instead of fruit juice delivers fructose in a more structured and manageable way. Lactose-free dairy can eliminate the lactase problem entirely. Reducing intake of high FODMAP sugars can help people with IBS. And in the controversial but scientifically supported category, eating dessert after a meal instead of as a standalone snack genuinely improves tolerance. This is not nutritional propaganda, it is physiology. Despite this, sugar is not an enemy. The human body is capable of handling sugar quite well under the right circumstances. The issue arises when industrialized food environments deliver sugar in forms and quantities that overwhelm the systems designed to process it. Humans evolved to find sweet foods rewarding, but the human intestine did not evolve in a world where fructose appears in concentrated liquid form inside 24-ounce bottles. The broader lesson is that symptoms are information. If sugar makes someone feel nauseous or fatigued or bloated, the body is not being dramatic. It is communicating. The digestive system does not speak English, but it does speak discomfort. And its accents are surprisingly specific once you learn to listen. Sugar can be a treat. It can also be a test. And for many people, it reveals more about their biology than they might expect. Not because the body hates sweetness, but because biology always demands a certain amount of respect, even from dessert. What has been your experience of feeling sick after too much sugar? Does it take you right back to your childhood when you used to raid the cookie jar? Tell me all about it. I shall keep your sugar secret, yes, according to patient confidentiality rules. Don't hesitate to Askadoc if you have any questions, and if this video appeals to you in any way. Do subscribe and like the video. Until next time, stay healthy.